This is Red Dog Terrain. Welcome back to the shed. Today we're building a Gundam's final resting place. Two of my friends just had their first child. As they were making space for baby stuff, they were getting rid of things, including this Gundam. I know almost nothing about Gundam, sorry, and I really hope this model isn't worth a whole lot. When they gave me the model, I said, "You know I'm not going to finish this, right?" They said, "Yeah." I said, "You know I'm probably going to destroy this, right?" They said, "Yeah." So with their blessing, I started with a circle of cheap dollar store foam board. Next, I took some scraps of chunks of XPS. I drew and cut the shape of the circle on the bottom and let it overhang the edge of the circle. While I have a moment, I want to thank the band Aya for the use of their music in all of my videos. This song is Pry off their second album. Please check them out on Bandcamp, link in the description. I pinned what would become the large rocks making the edge of the pool to the dollar store foam board. Then I put the secret sauce on the bottom. The secret sauce, of course, is just Mod Podge and black paint, done to protect and strengthen the foam. With 6 chunks roughly in place, I laid the Gundam to make sure it would fit how I wanted it to. Next, I used my handheld hot wire cutter to cut angles and slopes on the foam. The front rocks were low, so the Gundam can hang out of it, but from the beginning, I wanted tall stones on the back. I wanted to use something that had ruined pieces before: spray paint. When spray paint is applied closely and heavily to foam, it eats it, but it leaves an amazing texture, full of little holes and bumps. Just look at the chemicals doing all the hard work. With all the texturing done, I glued and pinned down the rocks. Next, I made a batch of bill-making stuffs crusted: paint, sand, grout, and a bit of water. I used this to cover up where I used UV resin to connect and seal the stones together. I also added it in a few places where the paint had peeled, where it needed a little more texture. Don't know if it helps, but these are the paints I used for the stones. The gray-haired young man scrambled up the rocky slope. He had seen the large mech falling out of the sky somewhere in this area. He followed the smoke, but so far had been unable to find it. Cresting another peak, he spotted the distinct red of his fallen friend. The hope in his heart quickly dissipated as he got closer. There would be no second chance for this mech. There would be no one last battle. The secluded mountain pool would be his final resting place. I've seen so many YouTube videos where resin pours go wrong, so I decided to test the seal with water first. Here you can see my obvious wet failure. I sealed up the gaps with UV resin and tried again, and again, and again. Luckily for you, I've edited out the hours of me trying to figure out where these leaks were. With the base and pool done, it was time to destroy this mech. I gave him a black wash. I dabbed on some rusty orange paint and some murky green. I cut off little chunks and scratched him up. This guy's been through a lot. I also broke off part of his foot and placed his hand with a few wires. And I think part of his face fell off. I fit him into place, and then I poured in the resin. Over the next day, Every few hours, I would skip back to the shed and check to see if there was any leaks. Luckily and thankfully, all the resin stayed inside. Before it hardened, I popped all the air bubbles with a blast from my heat gun. To cover up the spots where I UV resined, I dabbed on some glue and stuck on clump foliage and flock. I also added 2 flowers. This also gives the place more character and lets you know the pool doesn't get too many visitors. And I think that finishes this build.